Hey friends, it's Nikayla from the podcast Side Hustle Pro. I'm always looking for ways to keep my kids entertained without screens, and the Yoto Mini has been a total lifesaver. My kids are obsessed. Yoto is a screen-free audio player where kids just pop in a card and listen. Hours of stories, music, podcasts, and more, and no screens or ads. With hundreds of options for ages 0 to 12, it's the perfect gift they'll go back to again and again. Check it out at yotoplay.com. YOTOPLAY.com.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Mint's premium wireless is $15 a month. But I'd like to offer one other perk. We have no stores. That means no small talk. Crazy weather we're having. No, it's not. It's just weather. It is an introvert's dream. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
The kettle's boiled, Vic.
Great. Perfect timing. Just a dash of milk for me, please, mate.
Here you go. Shall we get started then?
Have you ever woken up on a Sunday morning and said, I'm never drinking again, and then found yourself waving $50 at a barman by happy hour?
Are you wondering why everyone else can stop at 1 while you head to a dodgy after-party with a weird bloke called Disco Dave? If so, it might be time to take a deeper look at your relationship with your reliable social crutch, alcohol.
On each episode, we'll investigate our own dysfunctional dealings with booze and find out if it's possible to stop this deeply ingrained habit before things get too messy.
Yep, we're going to open up a shame shed of humiliating drinking stories to help you understand why waking up from a booze coma each weekend with a kebab sticking out of your top pocket might actually be negatively impacting your health.
Hamish and I are here to delve into what it's like being sober, an unwanted warts and all look into why giving up those cheeky pints or putting down those mummy wines will make you feel happier, help your anxiety and mental health, and turn you into the most sparkly, authentic version of you.
Won't that mean I become boring though, Vic?
Well, Hamish, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm Victoria Vanstone.
I'm Hamish Adams-Cairns.
And this is Sober Awkward. My nan used to dip my dummy in a glass of whiskey at Christmas.
Really? Just a little Christmas treat for baby Vic.
No wonder. Explains a lot, doesn't it, Hamish?
All this PTSD you've got from Christmas.
Mummy, can I have my whiskey?
Did I tell you the only time, it wasn't often that my mum went out, but my dad stayed in.
Yeah.
Usually it'd be the other way around, we'd all be out. And I can remember coming down the stairs and to my dad, I can't sleep, Daddy, I can't sleep. And he took me downstairs to the kitchen and he gave me, I think it must have been like a small glass of port. It was, I remember like him opening the cupboard and being like, oh, this is unusual. And they gave me a glass of, it must have been tiny. I'd have been like young. I'm probably throwing him in the shit here.
Yeah.
But a glass of something. And from my memory, he carried me back up the stairs asleep.
He slept better in those days,
It's
that's
not
for sure.
necessarily good parenting. No. I guess we could say, well, it was different in that generation.
Different generation, yeah. I know a French guy, Claude Cuxac, one of my favourite people in the whole world. And at school in France, at the morning lunch break, it was in the vineyards in the southwest France, they used to have a glass of red wine from like the age of 5 to 10. Yeah.
Oh my God.
This was probably, 60 years ago, but they had a glass of red wine at school.
And people wonder why French people often grow up to be arrogant and pretentious because they're drinking red wine as 10-year-olds.
He's just offended the entire country of France in one fell swoop. Well done.
The bad thing about that is that a lot of my friends are French and I had some very happy years living in France. So I don't mean to offend anyone. There is a stereotype that some of the French, maybe, not my words, are arrogant. But yeah, I don't want to put my foot in it.
It's what makes them cool and aloof. It's endearing, Hamish.
We can all agree they're cool. We can all agree they will always have coolness over every Brit ever.
Yeah. I also remember being offered wine on my wedding day, Hamish, which doesn't sound weird, but I was actually pregnant and people were coming up to me and doing that, one won't hurt, you'll be fine.
Was it the same nan that gave you whiskey with your tummy?
No, she'd died by then, unfortunately. Not of alcoholism. I did end up holding a flute of champagne throughout my wedding, not taking a sip of it, but I was 3 months pregnant. But I thought it was easier just to hold the glass instead of getting hassled by everyone with that one won't hurt. Luckily, alcohol made me feel really, really sick when I was pregnant. I'm sure I would have drunk otherwise, which is scary to think about.
What made you feel sick? Did you have a sip once and feel sick, or did the thought of alcohol make you feel sick?
I think the thought of it made me feel sick. It was like, certain smells make you feel sick when you're pregnant, and alcohol was one of those. Lucky for me. I never ever thought about the risks to the baby before I got pregnant. That's an interesting point to make before we start this podcast today. I presumed it would be okay. I was uneducated about the harm. So I did drink when I was trying for a baby. And I think even when I was pregnant, I may have had a couple of glasses of wine here and there, probably in the first pregnancy only. But I don't remember doing it, but I think it probably did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate to admit that about myself.
That's okay.
But it's ingrained in my culture. It's not my fault. I was having it thrown down my neck in every direction from a very young age. So I almost didn't have a choice about it.
You're the different generation, Vic.
I'm the different generation now.
It was okay to do this.
In the 80s.
Do you remember hearing that old wives' tale about Guinness being good for you when you're pregnant because it's full of iron?
God, yes. It's madness.
That would have been spread, particularly in Ireland. We're recording this a day after Paddy's Day. I wonder if it's very topical at the moment to drink Guinness.
Yeah, not when pregnant.
That can't be right. I have heard the rumour that Guinness is the only drink that you can survive on without any food.
I'm not sure that that's true.
I don't want to test it, but I think there's enough food nutrients in it that you can not eat food and you can still survive on Guinness.
But also, in what situation are you going to be in where Guinness
niche.
I'm on an island.
Yeah.
I've washed up on a beach, and Guinness is the only thing growing on the trees. I remember the old wives' tale that if you had heartburn, you'd have a baby with a full head of hair, and babies should be washed until they squeak.
Wow.
Well, it's weird, isn't it?
I heard the heartburn one. I don't know about the squeaking
I think
washing
that's mice, that squeak when you wash them, not babies. I'm not sure you should be washing babies. Babies don't squeak. I don't know what that is. I've been online.
Why are you washing mice?
It's the same as the Guinness thing. Don't ever look anything up online is my advice.
Old wives' tales aside, I think there are some conditions out there that we try and ignore in the hope that they will never happen to us. I know I ignored chlamydia for ages. Until I got it. That's not true. That is a joke. Never had chlamydia. Very clean genitals. Anyway, we know deep down that any alcohol in your system when pregnant is really bad for your unborn baby, right? We're all on the same page with that one.
Yep, that's right, Haim. But that's all I know. It's bad. But how much is bad and why? And what is the impact if you drink when you're pregnant? What can happen? Today, we're going to be having a chat about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASDs. They are a group...
FASDs.
Oh, sorry. FASDs.
You're so used to saying AF, it just went straight in.
Yeah, I'm so used to AI. It's so true. They're a group of conditions that can occur in a person who was exposed to alcohol before their birth.
Right, well, you might be shocked to find out, despite us continually reminding you, we are not doctors. We don't have degrees. Well, actually, I do have a degree.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, well
A
done.
BA Honours in English Literature.
Yeah, smart
Guys, you
pants.
know that about me. Vic, not so much. Neither of us have letters after our names. We've both failed quite a few exams. I didn't actually. No, I did. Latin when I was 11. 17%.
Oh, that's not good.
I also failed my first driving test. First person in my school to fail a driving test in Moulton.
I failed 3 times.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You held up 2.5 fingers there,
Yes,
but
I did.
that's because you only have 2.5. We had memorable careers in drinking, as you may know. We both trained in Paris to be clowns. I think that sums up how expert we are when it comes to episodes that are a bit more serious than the rest. A couple of clowns stumbling through, tripping over our big, clumsy shoes.
Yeah, our stupidity actually benefits our listeners because it means we get on a fabulous guest who guides us through a topic with knowledge and intellect instead of us pulling some stats from our bottoms involving an AI bot and Googling how to spell fetal 8 times.
In case you're wondering, FETAL is preferred in North America and in the scientific community, whereas FOETAL is commonly used in the UK medical schools, hospitals and Commonwealth nations.
Gosh, I love your little
I
factoids,
did a
Hamish.
little bit of research into that.
Using experts makes everything much better for everyone. You know that Hamish is nothing more than an uninformed buffoon. Would you agree, Hamish?
What? No, sorry, I zoned out for a second. You got any snacks?
Got any snacks? Here you go, buffoon. Anyway, today we want to discuss FASD because it's a topic we know nothing about but feel like we should.
Yes, we've overlooked the stats, discounted the risks, and disregarded the truth about FASD because when you do get pregnant, it's just too scary to even consider. Vic, when you were pregnant, did the doctor tell you much about it?
Not really, and I have been pregnant 3 times, or actually 4. I had a miscarriage between Nellie and Fred. When I went for checkups, I was asked about my alcohol intake, which we all are, aren't we?
Yeah.
Quite often at the doctor's. And I was advised not to drink during my pregnancy, but I remember walking out and thinking, they must be talking about extreme drinkers. I'm sure a couple is okay. So I never really took it in. I was just like, well, what harm? Because I was so used to binge drinking, 1 or 2 glasses seemed like it would be water to me.
Right.
So what was the point in stopping that? Because that's just a pathetic amount that just losers would drink because I was such a massive boozer. I just thought, well, 1 or 2, what's that going to do? It doesn't even touch the sides, mate. Yeah. What about you, Hamish? Did you presume having a few here and there would be okay?
We were actually pretty clear cut about it.
Interesting.
Because Liz knows and has been told that her mum drank and smoked during her pregnancy with Liz.
Right.
So she was very adamant, like, I don't want to do the same.
Yeah.
She allowed herself 1 glass of champagne on our wedding day, which
Okay.
was also Christmas Day. I think it was actually a half glass. And she sort of like looked forward to that. She's like, I'll have half a glass on our wedding day and Christmas Day. That seems like it's okay. We hope that today's episode reaches the ears of people that plan on having kids. If that is you, then it might help you learn more than either of us 2 idiots
Yeah.
who knew absolutely nothing about it when we were in your shoes. And it might just help you reconsider your alcohol intake in the lead up to this life-changing event and beyond it.
Yeah, it's kind of a preventative episode, Haim. One in which we educate ourselves along with the listeners, and I'm looking forward to finding out more.
This is Vic's chat on FASD with Sophie.
Hi, Sophie. It's lovely to have an English person on. Makes me feel cosy and at home. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Vic. It's funny. I don't know how long you've been in Australia, but I've been here. This is my 20th year, and I still think, as soon as you speak to somebody who's English, the accent comes straight back. It's great.
Thank you for coming on. This is a topic that Hamish and I have wanted to cover for a really long time, and we think it's really important to get the right perspective on it and do it justice. So we're so glad to have you here. I think we'll start, Sophie, by asking you, what is FASD exactly?
So really good question, because I think it's something that's constantly misunderstood and people are misinformed around. But those 4 initials of FASD, or sometimes will be referred to as FASD, they stand for Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. So probably you can hear straight away in the title of the diagnosis that the alcohol is a part. And basically it's a diagnostic term, and it's used to describe the impacts on the brain and body of individuals that are prenatally exposed to alcohol, so a fetus during a pregnancy. It's lifelong, it's a lifelong disability, and individuals with FASD will experience some degree of challenges in their daily living and need support with perhaps motor skills, physical health, learning, memory, attention, communication, emotional regulation, and social skills as well, to really help them to achieve their full potential. I think probably what's really key is to remember, for anyone who's listening, that it is a spectrum disorder. So each individual is unique. They have strengths, they have challenges, and they'll be impacted depending on how much alcohol they were exposed to in utero, how often, and the volume, really.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you my kind of journey with alcohol, my journey with FASD as it happened?
I think we'll start at the beginning. Like, what sort of drinker were you? You know, are you the classic sort of teenage rebellion like I was that turned into a party girl? It's a very common story. I imagine that's yours too.
Yeah, not too dissimilar, to be honest. I mean, for me, it would have been, I think probably the first time I tried alcohol was maybe 15, something like that, and drank far too much and was very ill, and then steered away for a wee bit. But, growing up, alcohol in the UK, as you would know, was always just a kind of social lubricant. For me, it was, a Friday night or a Saturday night. What would be classified now in my older years understanding would be binge drinking, but at the time was just normative behaviour. For me as well, that was when I would smoke. So when I was younger, the cigarette went with the alcohol. And back in the UK in those days, I'm approaching 50. Back in the UK in those days, that was just how it was. It was okay. Anyway.
20 Marlboro Light at the spa.
Similar, definitely similar. And then the strange thing is, I wouldn't drink and smoke for the rest of the week because I was into looking after myself, but didn't kind of correlate the two. But when I was 30, I've been married for a few years. We'd moved to Australia. Before I moved to Australia, I stopped smoking. I was lucky, I wasn't addicted to cigarettes and I chose to. And the knowledge I had at the time was that if you were going to try for a baby, you didn't smoke. It was dangerous. I also knew about nutrition and how you had healthy food. I also knew that, you should continue to exercise. So I had my own values and belief system. Alcohol formed part of that from the point of view that once I was pregnant, I wouldn't drink alcohol because I knew there was a risk. I didn't truly know what the risk was, if I'm honest.
Can you just describe what sort of drinker you were in your 20s to the point where you became pregnant? Were you a glass of wine a night, or were you more of a binge drinker at the weekend still then?
Until I got to 30, I would have been a binge drinker on a Friday night and probably a Saturday night on the whole.
Yep.
Yeah, probably right up until it would have been circumstantial after that. So if I had something happening on a Saturday, I was going out, it would be Friday and Saturday. But if I didn't, then it would probably just be a Friday. It was the end of the week, professional working woman, had my own means, could make my own choices. Probably a bottle of wine would be truthful, my binge on a Friday night. And shared often, but not always because we were out socialising. So, but yeah, glass of white was always my thing, if you like, back then. And falling pregnant, my husband and I had been married for a few years. We decided it was probably time if we were going to start trying that we should consider it. I'd been using contraception for over 10 years, figured about time to stop. It's going to take a while to work out my system. And we were very lucky that the first time that I had stopped using contraception, that we didn't use any other form, we'd been out drinking at night of conception, threw caution to wind and went, oh, well, we're married. If I end up getting pregnant, it's no big deal. Didn't truly think that would be the first time and I'd be pregnant. So, very, very fortunate that happened. But, of course, had no idea, so didn't even think about the fact I'd missed a period until I was about 6 weeks. I was actually out running and was feeling uncomfortable and thought, oh, hang on, I haven't had a period just yet. So went through that process, did the test, found out I was pregnant. And interestingly, one of the first things that I thought at that time was, oh, my God, there would be 2 or 3 occasions I've been out, and in my terminology at that time, something I wouldn't necessarily say now, was that I was smashed. I'd had a bottle of wine. I was really feeling pretty drunk, but didn't even consider the pregnancy at that point. So 6.5 weeks, doctor confirmed the pregnancy. I was told, I shared what had happened with the alcohol. I was told, look, it's not great to do that. Don't do it anymore. We would suggest that, it's not safe to drink high levels of alcohol. Totally on board. But I'll tell you the truth though, Vic, for me, I didn't want to not drink alcohol. I wanted to have a drink of alcohol, but I wanted to understand what the impacts were. So back in 2005, when I was pregnant with my first son, I actually looked up the guidelines to see what was safe. And at that time, it was safe to have 2 standard drinks a night, no more than 7 a week, I think it was. So what I would do for the rest of my...
Not when pregnant?
Yeah. So that was the guidelines in Australia at that point.
Oh, wow.
They've changed twice in 2009 and 2020. No alcohol at all now.
When I was writing my book, there's a chapter in there where I'm pregnant and I'm scrolling through the internet trying to find an article about when I can have a drink and surely one's okay. And, I remember sitting there just thinking, surely there's got to be something on here that tells me that 1 glass of wine is going to be okay when I'm pregnant. Of course, I didn't find that information. It was 2012, I think. So maybe the guidelines had changed a little bit by then, luckily for me.
Yeah, no, you're right. They did. They changed in 2009, so it's safest not to drink. And then 2020, complete abstinence, it now says. So, but yeah, I looked at those guidelines back in 2005 and then said, right, okay, so I can have up to 2 a day, no more than 7 a week, and decided I would measure, my husband's a nurse, by the way, I would measure 100 mils of wine on a Friday night as my little treat. So that's how I continued to drink through my pregnancy, just one standard drink. Now, whether or not that had a major impact on my son, we'll never know. What we do know from the researchers out there now is that certainly binge drinking, particularly for more than a couple of occasions, is risky. And it's particularly risky for a developing fetus at any stage during pregnancy. But that first trimester, it's a real risk, even greater, if there is such a thing.
Right. Yeah.
So our son was born full term. He was a 4-kilo baby, healthy, 9 out of 10 on the APGAR scale. He slept poorly. He couldn't breastfeed, was up every 40 minutes, constantly through the night, very hard to settle. But of course, all of those factors, because he was a healthy baby, all of that was put down to me as a career mum, over anxious, must be down to how I was parenting and that he was picking up on me. Now, I don't doubt some of that anxiety because it was feeding each other, if you like. We went to sleep specialists. We went to all sorts of people to try and find out if there's more we could do. We were always about trying to improve things for him and for us. It wasn't until he was about 5 or 6. He'd started kindy, he'd done preschool. And when he'd been there, the comments were that he was very active and he didn't appear to be learning in some ways, but was in other ways. And we went to see a developmental paediatrician. We went to see an occupational therapist because of all the interactions and the fact he wasn't concentrating. Again, he didn't meet markers significantly enough. So it was kind of described as being, maybe about 6 months behind his peers. Fast forward up until when he was 11 and he was in the last year of primary school. Now, up until that point, we'd put in extra tuition. So we had very firm boundaries at home. My husband's ex-military as well as being a nurse. So, you had routine, you had structure, a lot of consistency, a lot of scaffolding and support for our son. But we just did what we thought we needed to do. It's not because we thought he had any particular challenge going on. But when he got to that next stage around about age 10 or 11, that's when the executive functioning of our brains kind of really develops more. So all of a sudden, he scored really poorly. He went from being average or just below average academically to being bottom of the class. And it happened overnight. And that really was based on testing, but also the fact that his peers were suddenly progressing and he wasn't. So that was a really big moment.
It's very difficult as a parent to see what's going on, isn't it? Because it could be so many things. It could be them just not paying attention. It could be that they're distracted because of autism or don't know as a parent. It's a real worry, isn't it, when you hear reports back from teachers, because at home you have no one to compare them to. It's only when they have brothers and sisters growing up behind them that you think, oh, perhaps they're acting a little bit differently than is normal. And I find it even hard with my kids. Like, one of the teachers at school said, oh, he might have ADHD. And I'm like, well, he's just overactive. And sometimes you just think, is it natural or is there something actually going on?
It is. And one thing I probably should say is I'd hate to be worrying anybody out there who's thinking, oh my goodness, this sounds like my child. This is exactly what he or she did. The reality is, like you've just said, all kids are different. We certainly looked at our son with a lens that it wasn't that there was a deficit, it was that he was unique, he was who he is, he was active, full of beans, full of challenging every single possible barrier, because that's just who he is, and he'll make a great entrepreneur and all of those positive things. So, and I think as parents, when you look at the strengths, that's how your kids can develop. And it's a minefield, isn't it? We do our best when we know what we know with the knowledge we have, and we're learning every day. So, and that point you make about if you have siblings or your child has siblings, our younger son is just under 2.5 years, younger than his brother, got 2 boys, and he wasn't exposed to alcohol. Now, the reason he wasn't exposed to alcohol was because I had an incredibly busy toddler who rarely slept, and I wasn't living where I was living, so I didn't go out on a Friday or Saturday night drinking because that wasn't my social life anymore. It's not because I'd learned differently, it's just that my life had changed. So I think that point is really key, as you were saying. Like, I would start to compare, even though you don't want to compare, and think, wow, okay, our younger son can do this already, but our older son hasn't mastered this yet, and would just put more and more support into helping him do things.
Yeah. How do you get diagnosed with this? What happened next?
So, good question. So for many people, it would be going to a GP with information and knowledge that there has been prenatal alcohol exposure. So that's something that you have to be able to say yes. If you're the bio mum like I am, being able to say, yes, I drank alcohol and I believe it was at these points in my pregnancy and I believe it was this much. Of course, our memories are imperfect. The only reason I remembered my alcohol consumption was because I told the doctor at the time. And I didn't remember that until I found out about FASD fully when my son was 12. And that was because I'd started to get the knowledge from the national organisation around FASD. So that was when I first suddenly went, oh my gosh, he meets all of these red flags. We've just thought it's this or it's that or it's something else. Now I'm starting to think maybe this is what it could be. Now, he'd already been assessed twice by a paediatrician, didn't come out with any criteria. He didn't then meet the criteria for autism. He still doesn't. But he then did meet criteria for ADHD, which is very common to be co-diagnosed with FASD because it crosses the brain domains the same. The other thing was that we'd already had him assessed for dyslexia and dyscalculia. He didn't have either. But going back through that assessment, he actually had some of the same areas that you'd need assessed for FASD. So you're talking about needing FASD-informed clinicians to make the assessment, and that's what can make it tricky. And it can make it tricky going to a GP because your GP needs to know that there's been prenatal alcohol exposure and really go through a list of some of the things and factors that have been included in their lives. Yeah.
You're very brave, I have to pause you there, to even consider that, because I think a lot of people would see those stats and see that word, and there's an element of blame there. There's an element of that you have done something wrong, isn't
Hey friends, it's Nikayla from the podcast Side Hustle Pro. I'm always looking for ways to keep my kids entertained without screens, and the Yoto Mini has been a total lifesaver. My kids are obsessed. Yoto is a screen-free audio player where kids just pop in a card and listen. Hours of stories, music, podcasts, and more, and no screens or ads. With hundreds of options for ages 0 to 12, it's the perfect gift they'll go back to again and again. Check it out at yotoplay.com. YOTOPLAY.com.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. It's our Black Friday sale. Recharge this season with a bundle of cozy, soothing comfort. Now only $17.99 for our C2 mattress and base, plus free premium delivery. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
there? And that's where the shame comes from. And I guess that's why a lot of people don't get this diagnosis, is because it's easier just to go, well, my son has ADHD or we're having these problems because of a reason that I don't know about. And to actually grasp onto that term and go, perhaps this is something that I need to look into, is ever so brave. I would feel shame in that. Do you know what I mean? I would feel shame to admit to people that maybe it's something that I did. How does that feel to recognize that that is something that you played a part in, perhaps?
Look, thank you for saying it and for calling it what it is, because sometimes I will be in these environments and talk and people don't want to talk about it. But the reality is it's the shame, it's the blame, it's the judgment that actually stop people from talking about it. And that's a huge issue. And when I realised that it could be FASD, when I realised it could be because I drank alcohol when I was pregnant, and that's what the cause of my son's deficits are, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it was fine, no problem. Of course, the amount of guilt I felt was intense. The shame I felt was also the same. A lot of that I've moved through, not to say I don't still feel guilty. Of course I do, because it wouldn't have happened had I not have drunk alcohol. But for me, it's not about me as the woman drinking alcohol. It was about the societal norms at the time. That's how I rationalise it. It's about the fact that alcohol is present in our everyday lives. It's about, and I'm not anti-alcohol, I don't want to come across in that way, but what I will say is that, as you would know and your listeners would know, is that alcohol has been targeted at women, particularly for 10, 15 years? It's classy with your glass of Chardonnay because you can't affect a pregnancy, can you, if you're drinking posh wine? It's the whole system around us, and alcohol is accepted when somebody drinks alcohol to a level that doesn't cause them to be shameful or appear as if they don't have control. Is it the person that is the problem here, or is it the fact that the alcohol is the problem?
I think it's very, very difficult. I totally agree with everything you've just said. I think it's very difficult. And I was exactly the same. I did a pregnancy test when I was hungover with my first child. I had the worst hangover of my life. I'd been out partying. It was my hen do, actually, in Australia. And I remember that thinking, gosh, this hangover is going on a bit long, and doing a pregnancy test and realizing that I was in fact pregnant. And I did feel a little bit of shame, but I hear that story all the time. In fact, most people I know go, oh, ha, 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 I found I was pregnant when I was hungover. And I'd probably been drinking quite a lot in the lead up to finding that out. And I don't feel shame about it because I actually had no choice. That is what my culture and my society and my generational choices were. Alcohol was always coming for me. It wasn't like I went out there to try and find it because I was feeling rebellious or had trauma or had any of these things going on around me. It was coming at me in every direction. So I don't feel shame because I actually never really had a choice about alcohol. And it came along at that time for me when I was 13 or 14 and questioning myself. And it's all very clever how it just suddenly appears in your life and it seems like the answer to everything, the answer to motherhood, the answer to shyness. It's not our fault. So I know exactly how you feel there. And I don't feel blame about any of my drinking or shame or anything because it really wasn't my fault. It was the drug doing what the drug is designed to do, which is to want me to want more, to lead me to want another glass of that cheap Chardonnay that I was drinking. So there is a sense of, well, we could feel shame about this and not talk about it. Or we could just say, well, everybody bloody does this and this is the effect. So let's talk about it so that perhaps some other people don't have to feel like we did when we were, in our first stages of pregnancy or leaning on something just because everybody else is doing it or society is telling us that it's okay. So I really feel your sense of shame there. And I know how that feels. It's very similar to going sober because you have to admit that you have a problem or to admit something in the public arena like we're doing now. It can be hard, but that's why it's so important to have these conversations. So I really appreciate you being honest about that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the guilt will probably never go away to a certain extent and an element of the shame. But the reality is the majority coming from the UK and living in Australia now, the majority of my peers at that time were consuming alcohol. The majority of the people I speak to still to this day now, despite an amazing national health campaign that's out there, the guidelines being updated in 2020, still the message is not translating and getting through to the front line necessarily. So people are still, I still frequently hear from people who've just consumed alcohol, had no idea they were pregnant. And if somebody had said to all of these different people I've spoken to and myself and yourself, Vic, so what you do is when you stop using contraception, if you're having sex and you're drinking alcohol, it's not a good mix. Either don't drink alcohol or use contraception. Like it's simple. It's a dead straight message. But if you don't know it, you don't know that that's what you have to do. So, yeah, the blame and the shame just needs to be parked. And that goes, in truth, for health professionals as well who are scared to ask. And I'll have conversations with doctors and other health medical people and talk about the fact that, they'll say, how do we ask the question about alcohol and pregnancy? Well, you ask it in the same way that you ask somebody, or you give them information about not eating pate and soft cheese and washing their lettuce. Do you exercise? It's really good if you continue to do the same amount of exercise. Do you drink? Do you smoke? Okay, well, if you've been drinking previously, now's the time to consider stopping if you're going to start, not use contraception. It's not hard to have the conversation. It's part of our everyday life, alcohol.
I think we sort of kid ourselves. I think we go through life kidding ourselves that it's okay. It's just easier than considering stopping because for people that drink, whether it's heavily or binge drinking or moderate drinking, it feels like it's your mate. And by telling someone to stop, it's like them tapping on your shoulder and going, that's not okay. And it's like, don't slag off my best mate. Like drinking is my thing. Drinking is what I do. And drinking is how I relax. Drinking is my identity in certain situations. So therefore it's really, really hard to tap someone on the shoulder and go, your mate isn't working for you anymore. Your mate's actually stabbing you in the back because people get really, really defensive and go, this is the one thing that I do for myself. Please don't take that away. And that's why the message is really, really hard to get across to people because it is like so close to their heart that it's hard to let go, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's, it's like you say, it's your support system. Whether or not you're dependent or not is not the point. It's about the fact that it's you go to on whatever the situation is and that's out there. And, I've had the privilege of talking to some amazing women who have been alcohol dependent and who have come through and are sober and have been for a while. But, they didn't have the choice that I had. I had a choice not to drink, but I didn't have the information to help me make an informed choice. And I would have done because I could have done. For somebody who can't stop and they need absolute support, being told that, right, don't drink now, it's dangerous for your baby or your pregnancy, it's not going to help someone. They need the support in place to make sure they can do that. And I've heard so many stories around judgment, as I'm sure you will, that are really testing.
So what happened when you made the correlation between your son's behaviour and FASD?
I describe it, when I've talked about it before, as being like a lightning bolt. Suddenly the information of the minimum amount of alcohol that can cause it, suddenly in those early weeks was a sudden moment for me of kind of being winded, really. So moving through that, getting more information, which I did privately to start with. The No FASD Australia website, which is there for parents and carers and individuals with FASD, it's great to find the information you need that's factual, but also talks about it from a parent and carer perspective as well. I was able to get a lot of information from there.
Yeah.
There's a FASD checklist which you can go through, which actually talks about health and physical impacts over the years. And I was able to look at that checklist and think, oh my gosh, whilst my son doesn't have any physical disability, he meets loads of these criteria. I was able to go back to the previous assessments he'd had done for other areas which he didn't have diagnosed, but it outlined what the same areas in his brain that would have been impacted by alcohol. So we went for a speech and language assessment, and despite him having great verbal skills, he then was diagnosed with a specific language disorder, which was receptive language, so how he heard and processed information. With all that information, I had enough, and I live in Perth, so the free option was to go to the neuroscience unit in Perth, and that was about an 18-month wait to then go through for him to be assessed and then diagnosed with FASD. Whilst it may sound very strange for anyone listening, that diagnosis that came up when he was 14 was a life changer for my husband and I and his younger brother, but not perhaps why your listeners might think. It was actually life changing because we suddenly had an understanding, some validation around everything we'd been seeing but couldn't put our fingers on for years, and now actually had an answer. I've mentioned about my husband being ex-military and things like that. For him, your values, your beliefs, one of them being respect, are non-negotiable. And for our son, that's not how he operated. And it was incredibly hard to understand that and resonate with that when, you're thinking, well, this is how we're raising you and you're completely different to this. And what it helped him to do was to understand that absolutely there still have to be consequences for behaviour. Absolutely all of these things need to be put in place. But you've got to try and work out what part of this is a brain-based disability and therefore he can't do something, as opposed to it's behavioural and he won't do something. And for us as a family, that was chalk and cheese and probably saved our marriage, to be honest, and has meant that his younger brother has been able to better understand why his brother would speak to him the way he did, why he'd treat him the way he did. And now they've got a wonderful relationship. Things aren't smelling of roses every day, but it's so much more cohesive at home.
I often hear this when people get diagnosed with ADHD or their children do. People wonder why you want to get the diagnosis, but actually it makes everyone more empathic towards the person and makes you understand their behaviours better, which gives you a closer relationship at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're not seeing it from a deficit base, you're seeing it from a can't base. And, it's deficit, but it's you can put things in place, you can put supports and scaffolding in place, and then it's a can do a lot of the time. And it just takes more time or a different approach or a different way of addressing it. If I may just come back to a point from before, we were asking about, a lot of clinicians and families may stop at a diagnosis of ADHD or autism or other trauma-related responses around reactive attachment disorder or oppositional defiant disorder and things like that. And it may be that they are the diagnoses, and that's purely what the diagnoses are. However, for an individual with FASD, they're likely to have been diagnosed with other disorders first, around about 80% of the time. Some people would say higher. And that's because the family don't know to go further or just don't have that information, or the clinician doesn't ask due to stigma or lack of understanding around the condition. And there are strategies that can really help in the space of ADHD and autism as well. If they're working and you have those diagnoses, fantastic, great. If they're not working and you know there's been prenatal alcohol exposure, then it may be that there's something else that's missing and other information and supports may help more.
So is it treated in the same way as ADHD? Do the doctors give medication? How do you treat FASD?
Yeah, I'd love to say a very quick answer and say yes, but it's no. So if somebody does have ADHD as a subtype of FASD, which is how it's called, some of the medications can be helpful. It really depends on how that child or adult has been impacted by the alcohol, at what stage during the pregnancy the alcohol has actually caused the damage. If I use our son as an example to give more clarity, he went on to a stimulant drug. His main area of difficulty was education. That stimulant drug for 3 weeks was like a miracle in terms of his learning. It was fantastic. Increased his self-esteem and his learning no end. However, after 3 weeks for him, it no longer worked because the stimulant effect was too much for his system, his internal regulatory system, and that made him too anxious and he couldn't do it anymore. So we had to find different drugs. So the short answer is, depending on the impact for the child in different areas of their brain, there are medications that can work, but it's quite a detailed process.
Our audience is people that are questioning their alcohol intake, people that are reconsidering their relationship with booze. And for those people, those women out there who are hoping to get pregnant, what's the recommendation now in that 2020 regulation change?
Yeah, so they're the National Health and Medical Research Council guidelines, nice mouthful for you, NHMRC, and it's alcohol and pregnancy guidelines. So in there, the advice is targeted at women. And the advice is that a woman who is planning a pregnancy or pregnant should not consume alcohol. That includes breastfeeding, but not because of the risk of FASD in breastfeeding, but of other developmental concerns. So no alcohol whatsoever when planning a pregnancy is the actual medical advice now. And what I would say on top of that, Vic, for all your male listeners too, is that what we do know, and again, you can't change the past, you can only know what you know from now and do better moving forward, is that they're actually starting, certainly from research, are pinning that 3 months prior to planning to starting to conceive, the male and female should avoid alcohol.
I remember throughout my pregnancies, my first one especially, we went on my honeymoon in Bali, I was pregnant. And I remember sitting watching my husband drink every night and just thinking, God, this isn't fair, is it? Like everyone's having a party and I'm just have to sat here with my fizzy water. Of course, I gave up drinking as soon as I found out I was pregnant. But then I remember being handed a glass of champagne at the hospital after the birth and not thinking twice about it and drinking in the hospital. So it's crazy how ingrained it was in me when I became a mum and how I actually continued to drink, even though somewhere at the back of my mind, I knew this information. I didn't know it as specifically as you've just explained it to me now. I knew that drinking and being pregnant or breastfeeding wasn't good, but I was always looking for an out.
Yes.
I was always looking, right, if I pump now, can I have 2 drinks later? And what if I put some milk in the fridge and then come home and sleep it off for 12 hours? You know, I used to be making up excuses left, right and center for drinking. But I think it's a really good point of view to involve the male perspective in this, like you said, because I think it can be hard for women like it was for me if your partner is still drinking through your pregnancy and like, why does everybody else get to do it and you can't? So there's this sense of FOMO, isn't there, which is going to cause you not only to want to drink while you're pregnant, but probably get straight back into it as soon as you have that baby, which of course isn't good either. So I think having a really calm and progressive conversation with your husband when you decide to try for a baby would be a really, really good idea to go, look, let's both of us do the best thing for us and our child here as we start trying and both stop drinking.
Yep. And it's a mindset, isn't it? I mean, and some people will hear what we're saying today and will say, clear off, there's no way that I'm going to do that. But other people will think, well, you know what, maybe that's how I'm going to support my partner when she can't have this, and do this and this. Maybe I'm going to be the one that also joins that team. And, I think the stats are something like 38% of women would say that they wouldn't drink if their partner wasn't drinking.
Well, so what's your day-to-day like now?
My day life and my home life interact, and they are positive for each other mostly. From a home aspect, we have a beautiful 18-year-old young man who works, who is doing very well, but on a daily basis there are challenges. FASD is a lifelong disability, and it is only caused by alcohol in the planning phases, as in those early weeks and throughout the entire pregnancy. It can't happen if there's no alcohol. So it can be prevented if only we know and there is the support there to prevent it. But I want to say, for anyone who right now could be pregnant and could be listening or has recently had a child and is concerned, a couple of things. There is a helpline you can call that is free phone. Are you happy for me to give that number, Vic, or do you want it in show notes? Or
No, of course. No, give that number. It's fine.
So that free phone number is 1-800-860-613. And you can just Google No FASD, NOFASD, and you'll find more about the organisation as well. It's there for people in the situation who might be finding out about this right now, but also for people who have children with a diagnosis or think they may have FASD. The other thing is, when we know early and we put in supports and interventions, the outcomes are far more positive. And when you do know, like you said before about any diagnosis, when you do know, you do parent differently, and your expectation of others is to behave differently with your child because you know they can't change at this point. But as an 18-year-old young man, I'm incredibly proud of the strengths my son has and how he's managed. And it makes me have a huge amount of respect for him, of the challenges he has to overcome every day to be where he is now. And, there is life beyond a diagnosis.
Thank you, Sophie, for sharing your story with us. It's so inspiring, and we really appreciate you having on. It's FASD Awareness Week, is that correct?
It is. So September the 9th, so the 9th hour of the 9th day of the 9th month is International FASD Awareness Day. And what we tend to do in the FASD community now is internationally we join throughout the world, but we're obviously huge in Australia in terms of making it a really big deal for the entire month of September. This year, there should be more than 60 different venues lit up in red. So around September the 9th, if you see a venue lit up in red, that's for FASD awareness. Take a picture, tag it, share it, please do. That's how we get the message out there.
Thank you so much for coming on Sober Awkward.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for that, Sophie. I think it's important to rid this topic of shame and stigma and get talking about it more. FASD is much more serious and prevalent than I ever imagined, but it's imperative to not feel shame about it. We're not here to make you feel judged because we did it too. Alcohol is so ingrained that we just presume it's okay. It must be because everyone does it, and there's not been much info out there to help guide decision making around this. But what we've learnt today could help others going forward, so please share this information with your loved ones.
I agree. The more informed we are about topics like FASD, the more we can pass this information on to others and start talking about this subject rather than just hoping it will never happen to us or affect anyone we know. For more information, go to nofasd.org.au. Their vision is the prevention of alcohol-exposed pregnancies in Australia and an improved quality of life for those affected by FASD, including those living with FASD and their parents and carers. It was an amazing episode, Hamish, wasn't it? I feel quite like I totally ignored that information for so many years because it was just easier to ignore. And I think probably people don't want to get a diagnosis because then it gets that sort of element of blame there as well. But actually, it's always going to be better to have that diagnosis so that you have more of an empathy for the person that has FASD.
Of course. I think most people who are listening to this are probably like you and I go, we know that it was bad to drink when you're pregnant. We've got no idea why. It's just this thing that you hear. And anyone that does then drink when they're pregnant just would be riddled with shame and guilt. And anything that happens with the kid thereafter, they'll be
second guessing.
Second guessing themselves and go, is it my fault? Was it my actions during the pregnancy that led to this?
Yeah.
So it can be a sort of horrible spiral.
And that's why Sophie is so inspiring, because she's really owning her story and really standing up for people with FASD. So I think she was incredible, and I really appreciate her coming on Sober Awkward today. But thanks for listening, everybody. I know it was a bit of a serious one today. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye. If you're questioning your relationship with booze, you're struggling to moderate, or your hangovers are causing anxiety, it might be time to reach out for some support.
Yeah, just talk to a mate about how you're feeling, contact a local doctor, find an AA or sobriety group. Vic's got one.
Yeah, just head to www.cuppa.community.
Remember, if you're questioning yourself, it might be time to seek support.
Even though this journey can be awkward, it is definitely worth it. And if you've enjoyed the Sober Awkward podcast, don't forget to review it, rate it, and share it with your mates.
They have to share it with their mates?
Yeah, of course they do. I'm not doing this for nothing, Hamish. Bloody hell.
How do they share it?
I don't know, just write it on the document.
Hey friends, it's Nikayla from the podcast Side Hustle Pro. I'm always looking for ways to keep my kids entertained without screens, and the Yoto Mini has been a total lifesaver. My kids are obsessed. Yoto is a screen-free audio player where kids just pop in a card and listen. Hours of stories, music, podcasts, and more, and no screens or ads. With hundreds of options for ages 0 to 12, it's the perfect gift they'll go back to again and again. Check it out at yotoplay.com. YOTOPLAY.com.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. It's our Black Friday sale. Recharge this season with a bundle of cozy, soothing comfort. Now only $17.99 for our C2 mattress and base, plus free premium delivery. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Add a little curiosity into your routine with TED Talks Daily, the podcast that brings you a new TED Talk every weekday. In less than 15 minutes a day, you'll go beyond the headlines and learn about the big ideas shaping your future. Coming up, how AI will change the way we communicate, how to be a better leader, and more. Listen to TED Talks Daily wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
So, as you probably know, my comedy memoir, 1,000 Wasted Sundays, is officially out. All my magnificent fuck-uppery in one awkward hit. If you'd like to get your hands on a copy, it's now available from all good bookstores.
We always say all good bookstores, don't we?
Yeah.
Are there bad bookstores?
No, it's probably ones with moody sellers.
Oh yeah, really depressed librarian folk.
Yes,
okay,
yeah. So there are probably some, but we're only storing it in the good ones.
It's only made it into the goodies.
You can also get it from all good online retailers. The print version and ebook are out now, and the audiobook will be available in March. I've been writing my memoir for 5 years. It will make you laugh, cry and cringe, and hopefully inspire a few people to reconsider their relationship with booze. If you love the podcast, then I think you'll love the book, even if I do say so myself. Hamish has read it. What did you think?
I feel like I know a little bit too much about you now, to be honest, Vic. Look, I really loved it. It was hilarious and surprisingly moving, but I feel like I've seen you naked in a literary sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's worrying.
Yeah. From an emotional point of view, seriously, It wobbled my teeny weeny wooden heart, Vic.
Okay.
My teeny little wooden heart.
Well, his wooden heart is broken. Anyway, so if you do manage to get your filthy mitts on a copy, please do me a favour and head to goodreads.com and give me a review. Doing that will help me get it out there to those that need a bit of sober support. So there you have it. My story, unwanted warts and all. Come and get awkward with me.
Not to be too demanding or anything, but seriously, go and buy it now.
Go and buy it. Go and buy it right now.
Yeah, don't just tell your friends. Buy it, and then buy your friends one or two.
Yeah, don't give them a copy. Buy it, yeah.
And you know what? Don't be careful where you store it. If you lose it, you can always buy another 5.
Buy another one.
Yeah.